Hello, and welcome to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I'm your host, Chantal Cox. My purpose is to empower and lift up others who know in their heart they're meant for more. More joy, more impact, and more passion. If you're ready to make a radical transformation and create a life that you love, then you have come to the right place. Let's do this. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Create a Life You Love video podcast, where we get to connect with people from all over the world to share tips and strategies designed to help you on your journey. So for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Chantal Cox. I'm an author, a speaker, a transformation neuro coach, and a certified life purpose coach. I specialize in helping women connect with their unique purpose and permanently remove the blocks that are holding them back so they can step into their full potential and live a life of impact that they were destined for. So quick reminder, this is being streamed live. So for those of you with us, please feel free to put any comments and questions in the chat, and we will be sure to get to them as they make sense in the flow of our conversation. If you are watching the replay, just do the same as if you're with us live. Just use hashtag replay and we'll get back to you. And if you're watching this on YouTube, LinkedIn, or any of your favorite podcasting platforms, and you have a question for either of us, just find our contact information in the show notes and we will get right back with you. All right. I'm so excited tonight to be here with Paul Levitin. Paul is a health and happiness coach who will be sharing realistic and actionable advice on how to live a healthy and happy life. So hello, Paul. How are you doing today?
Hello, Chantal. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. It's so nice to be here, and I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Who doesn't want to end the day talking about health and happiness, right?
And I literally talk about it all day, every day, and I never get tired of it. So I can't imagine who wouldn't want to hear about this stuff.
I love it. I love it. Where are you joining us from?
I am located in Brooklyn, New York, New
Oh,
York
how
City, kind of.
very cool. Very cool. I love it. And so, Paul, tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you create a life that you love?
Yeah, I created a life that I love through a lot of trial and error and guessing and checking. But my journey, I guess, starts in college and then a little bit after college when I just kind of was a mess. I was the prototypical party animal, just drinking all the time, doing drugs, and just having fun. Like, at that time in my life, I didn't think of it as being, addicted or anything bad. I thought I was just partying and having fun. I mean, looking back now, I see that I was drinking 4 or 5 nights a week and doing all types of recreational drugs. And, that probably is bordering on addictive behavior, if not, if not actually addicted. So I know I can be honest with myself now, but back then I was just like, oh, like, this is just what kids do. And eventually I started working as a personal trainer, and I started working on people's fitness and learning all this stuff about that kind of that world. But I was still in my personal life, still partying and still drinking and still going out until 3 o'clock in the morning before I had a 5 a.m. client or something like that, and just kind of living a double life. And at that time, I thought that I would have made it seem as if I had everyone tricked. Like I had the world fooled. Like I got away with something. It was like, oh, like I'm living the best of both worlds. Like I'm working in this world and I'm making money, but I'm also going out and I'm having fun, and like I get to have it all. And then, eventually I kind of realized that that wasn't the life that I wanted, and that I didn't want to be stuck like that. I was 25, 26, not going anywhere, and it was like as if I had already peaked or finished in life, and it was like I'm barely out of college, and that's when I started to learn about, or what sent me on this road was the personal development and personal growth. I was introduced to a few key books that really changed my perspective on things, and I decided that I wanted to do better and be better. And I started to, luckily, because I was a personal trainer, I was already in the world of personal growth a little bit, people who are in that. So it was an easy transition for me to start to learn more and do more. And I started to drink less and go out less and use that time and energy and money to go to self-development seminars and personal growth seminars and read books and to listen to podcasts really changed my life. That's why I have my own podcast, and it was a slow, again, from there it was trial and error and what worked and what doesn't. But through changing my own personal habits, my own personal beliefs, and growing myself, I was able to change my life. And then I started to, and use some of these tactics with my clients, because I was a personal trainer at the time. And then I started doing nutrition coaching, and I started to help people like change their habits and do what I had done. And people would see that, the change in my life. People would, friends from college or friends from when I was younger would see me now, and they'd be like, what? They were like, dude, like, who are you even? You were the guy like puking on the side of the street. Like you're not the health guy. Like, and I'm like, yeah, but like I changed. And, like, that's, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Like, that's my whole thing. Like, there's nothing special about me. And, people see where I am now, where the guy who has a podcast and has his own business and works out and has a good body and has a mental health and a well-balanced life and all this stuff. And they're like, well, I want that. And I'm like, you can have that, and then so it just became like, it was just a very logical thing of like, I kind of figured out my own way, and I don't think there's anything special about what I did. So I wanted to help others have that. So I made my business and my life, and that's a long-winded way to tell my story.
I love it. So you mentioned that your journey really kind of kicked off with the personal development with like books and stuff. Are
Mhm.
there any that stick out to you that you would recommend?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have a ton, but the first book that really set me off was Think and Grow Rich. And Think and Grow Rich is like the stereotypical answer to this stuff, but it really is, because like, and it's funny because a kid at the gym gave it to me, like a kid at the front desk who was younger than me. He was like, he had the little tattered up book, and he was like, hey dude, I just finished this, you might want to read it. I hadn't read a book in over 10 years. And this includes going to college. Like, I made it through college. Like, again, I was a point of pride for me that like, I didn't read any, I never did my homework. I never did anything. And I still passed. I was like, oh yeah. Like, again, like in my head, I was the king of doing the bare minimum to get the result. I wanted, and I thought that was like a cool thing. I was like, yeah, look, I didn't even buy the textbook and I still passed the class, So I hadn't read a book since high school. And for some reason, this kid offered me this book and I decided to read it, and it was Think and Grow Rich. And it just cracked my brain open, and just that's when I saw like, oh, there's another way to live my life. Like, that's what this whole book was about. And the fact that it was written in like the 1920s, and I'm reading this and I'm like, this guy is talking to me in 2015, so that was like a huge one. And then from there were others, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is another huge one that really affected me, and The Slight Edge. So just kind of these like, and then again, I've read a ton more since then, but those are the ones that really like got me on this tear to be like, oh, like I said, like it was just that realization of like, oh, it doesn't have to be this way. Like, yes, just because I'm doing this, because I'm the guy, the party guy, the drinking guy, the getting blackout drunk guy, like that doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. And all that it takes to change that is my decision and a thought, and that I am in control of everything. And that like, that's all it takes. And that kind of led me to start to push in a different direction.
I love it. All excellent books. I'll get those linked. I actually am just finishing Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich for like the third or fourth time I've read it over the years. But yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that as your top one. And then, of course, who doesn't love some Stephen Covey? And, even schools are teaching that now. There's not just the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, there's 7 Habits of Happy Kids. That's a whole curriculum in some of the schools that I've taught in over the years. So great, great things. And then Slight Edge. I can picture exactly where it is on my bookshelf in the room behind me. But is it Jeff Olson? What's his name? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. White book. Yep. Got it. So we will get all those links. Definitely recommend those books to anybody listening. So thank you for sharing those. And yes, how powerful, like books and podcasts, these things can be so life changing if you take the time to listen to them, which means you have to stop doing some of the other things that were filling your time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100%. That's a big part of it. People will ask me, because I've had friends who are, drinking a lot, and they'll ask me how I stopped drinking, or, and I just say I stopped drinking. I'm not like sober. Like, I don't like claim to be. I will drink if I want to, but I just don't, because that's not indicative of the life that I want to live. So, some once in a while, if it's New Year's, I'll have a toast or something like that. But it's like, I just don't drink because that's not my life anymore. So when people will ask that, I have a friend who may be asking me, oh, like I want to cut back or something like that. And that's the first thing I do is say like, well, what are you going to fill that time with?
Mm.
Right. Like, like that's the thing. People want to change a habit and they want to stop doing something. They want to, stop smoking or stop drinking or something. But it's like, what are you putting in the place of that? Because if you're the guy who goes to happy hour 3 days a week after work, and now you want to stop drinking, and after work comes and you have the habit of going to happy hour for an hour, like what goes in there? You're not going to just go home and twiddle your thumbs. Like you're going to get, sucked in. And then in the same way, whenever we are trying to build a new habit, it's like, what habit are we taking away? Right. So people who want to go to the gym, right, that's an easy one that everyone wants to do. But it's like, people think like, well, I'm going to start going to the gym, 3 times a week. Same thing. It's like something has to get cut for that to go. If I want to read more books, even, right, I went from reading no books ever to reading 100 books, and like that is time that I had to shift around. So it's all just moving things around, and that understanding of like everything comes with a trade-off.
Absolutely. I love that so much. I was texting a friend earlier today who we're both starting coaching businesses and doing all this, and we're very socially active. And so I'm like, okay, I don't want to go out as much, but I'm social and I work really hard. I've replaced, like, there is no happy hour, there is no drinking, there is no socializing all week. It's work and then this business work, right? So then by Friday, I'm like over it and I'm ready for a break. Um, and so I'm like, okay, I want to replace that with something healthy. And so we were kind of spitballing some ideas of what that might look like. So I love that you hit on that because I know it's a very real thing that I myself am processing, and as is a friend, and as are other people in our friend group. They're just kind of like, okay, we're not in our 20s anymore. Let's grow up a little bit. Um, so these are already such great tips and resources you're sharing. And so, what other tips do you have for people on the journey to create a life that they love?
I mean, so it's a very broad question, but it's a great question. But if I had to break it down to uh, brass tacks, right? Everything starts with awareness, right? What do I want to do? What do I want to change? What do I want to be? Right. I use this a lot in my coaching. When I first start with someone, it's like, we don't reach a destination that we didn't set out for. Right. You don't end up, no, I didn't end up where I am in life accidentally. You didn't end up writing a book by accident. You didn't end up starting a podcast by accident. So all of these people will see something about what I have, what you have, what anyone has. Not that there's anything special about me again, but someone will look at me like, oh, that's so cool that you have a business, you have a podcast. I'm like, yeah, I made it. I did that. Like it doesn't just happen, but it all started with me deciding like that's the type of life I want. Right. So that being aware of what you want to change, because without that awareness, that's how we stay stuck. Right. Most people walk around and what they call like unconscious incompetence. Right. It's like, I don't know what I don't know. Only when you become aware, right, that's the unconscious incompetence is like the person who, I mean, this is impossible now, but go back 50, 60 years ago, the person who didn't know that cigarette smoking was a bad thing, right? And they're just like, they don't know what they don't know. Then once you become aware, oh, whoa, this thing that I'm doing every day is bad for me and can cause me cancer or can be harmful to my kids or my family. Now I'm able to at least make a decision. And what I choose to do after that fact is up to me. I can still choose to smoke. Plenty of people do, knowing the repercussions, and I might choose to quit, and I might choose a million things in between. But the first step is becoming aware. And so when you look at your life, what that might look like is doing things like thought experiments. Where do I want to be in 5 years? Am I on track to, if where I want to be is are my actions that I'm taking daily today in alignment with the life that I'm trying to build 5 years from now or a year from now? What are my values, and are the actions that I'm taking each day in alignment with my values? And again, this all just starts with an awareness, because doing things like listing out your values, doing things like creating a 5 year from now vision makes you aware. It's easy to say like, no, I'm fine. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm going home. I'm having a few drinks with friends, but it's not a big deal. And like, I go to the gym once in a while, but it's not consistent. But the vision I have in my head for 5 years from now is a guy who is at a healthy weight and who is going hiking with his kids and who isn't drinking and who is meal prepping all the time. And it's like, well, those two things aren't lined up now. So now I have a choice. Now I can actually make a decision. Whereas if I never think about that, if I never think about that 5-year vision, I'm just going to keep going along my day to day to day. That was me again in my 20s, just drinking, partying, whatever, because it's like, well, why wouldn't I? Right. It wasn't until I thought about the future at 25 and thought about, wait, what does my life look like at 35 if I continue doing this same exact thing? And then I'm like, I'm the same guy at 35, except now it's not like I'm like the cool, fresh out of college guy. I'm like the weird, creepy 40-year-old at the bar, and like that's when I had to, but it took me becoming aware and going like, oh, okay, like maybe there's another way. So that's a huge one, awareness. And then the other A is acceptance, because as much as I want to be aware of everything, I have to accept that life is the way it is. Right. And, that sounds weird to say when I was just talking about change and wanting more and doing all these things. But when I say acceptance, I mean, every day I was just talking about values, right? So every day I write my values, I write them down, pen and paper, so that it will make me remember them more. And one of the values that I write is I try my best, but I accept the outcome. Because going back to Stephen Covey, the spheres of influence, right? There are certain things that are within my control and certain things that are outside of my control. And I want to focus all of my time, energy, and effort on what's inside of my control. And that is this, me, what I say, what I do, and that's about it. Everything else in the world and the universe is outside of my sphere of influence. It's outside of my control. And I have to accept that. So I have to accept that when I put something out into the universe, when I publish a podcast, maybe people listen, maybe they don't. I can try my best, but that I can't control who listens. I have to accept that what I say on this podcast, someone may hear it and take my words completely out of context, not the way I meant it at all, not the way someone hear me talking like Paul's glorifying using drugs or something like that. And like, that's not what I meant, but I can't, like, I have no control over that. So I have to have a level of acceptance of what I can't control, because if I don't accept that, I use my energy on things that I can't control. And that to me is the root of unhappiness, of sadness, of anxiety, of stress, of overwhelm. Everything bad comes from trying to control things outside of our control. So going back to your original question, how do I create a life, that I want, a life that I love? Just accepting the things that I can't change and being aware of the things that I can and want to change, and what I need to do to work towards that life in the future.
I love that. And so, out of curiosity, do you write your 5-year plan in Napoleon Hill's format?
No, I have like my own, like all these different worksheets and stuff that I made up over the years that are like an amalgamation of all the different personal development. It's like, I have a morning routine that I'm a morning routine checklist that I'm going to, anyone who wants it, I believe that Chantal is going to have the link for anyone who wants to download it. It's a free win the morning, win the day checklist. But I can't imagine that that's not just a combination of all the different books that I've read. I don't propose to have created morning routines or anything like that. But it is just, I've read hundreds and hundreds of books, and I just take the little bits and the pieces and the golden nuggets that I like from all of them and kind of make my own mishmash of stuff. And that's what I want people to do for me. Again, I don't propose to have the one answer. I don't think there is an answer, right? That's the thing. I wish there was. If there was one answer to this stuff, it would be much easier, and I wouldn't need to have a job, and I wouldn't need to have a podcast, because all this stuff would be figured out. But these are the hard questions that we're talking about. So I think it's good for people to try a lot of different things, right? You got to try on a lot of different outfits before you see what fits. And, working with different coaches and using different resources and reading different books, I highly, highly recommend people just using all of the resources that are available to them. And some of them might be Napoleon Hill, and some of them might be Paul Levitin.
There you go. Yeah, and what an amazing time we live in 2022, that you can jump onto a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live or a podcast or pick up a book. The access to resources are amazing. And yet, yes, Napoleon Hill from the 20s is still a staple. And it's amazing. So you read it, you said the first time around 2015. And so I'm doing it as a book study with my mastermind. And so, it's 2022, and it's amazing how time and time again, though, those principles are still, he's like, after the Great Depression, everything got turned upside down. Everybody's relearning things. The people that were poor, they had grit, they had resilience, they had this vision, and now they're the ones holding the wealth, and they're the ones who thought and grew rich. And we saw that a lot again in like 2008, and now after COVID, rebuilding all that. So yeah, history definitely repeats itself. So don't just
Mhm.
poo poo on something that's older just because that was written in the 20s. Yeah, it's still very relevant.
Sure.
I love it. Um, so tell us a little bit about like what do you do for your morning routine?
So my morning routine, again, that checklist I'm gonna offer as a download. I call it win the morning, win the day, because if you win the morning, right, it sets you up for success. My everything that I do in my coaching and in my life and what I want for my clients is about building momentum, right? Everything happens in spirals. Either you're spiraling up or you're spiraling down, and there is no staying the same, right? This is my big thing. I actually just finished recording a podcast on this. I haven't even reached it, but the thing is that people think they get to stay the same, but we don't. You either are getting better or you're getting worse, and that's not me being like, oh, like motivational, like this is just like how physics work and life works. Like atoms are moving and they're crashing and they're colliding, and cells are growing and dividing, or they're dead. There's no in between. There's no like, so in our life, when we have this thought of like, yeah, well, like I know I could be doing a little bit more, but like I don't, like I don't have time or whatever. It's like you've accepted that it's like I'm on the slow decline. So what I want for everyone is to go forward, build up, and that starts with small wins, building momentum. So my morning routine is stacking 10 steps to create momentum within the first 30 to 45 minutes of your day, to have started the day with more wins, more momentum, more power than most people get in the rest of their day. So it's I'll give you a few of the first steps, and they all build on each other. So the first thing, step one, is wake up with no snooze.
Mm,
Mandatory, no snooze, because for several reasons. One, it's proven that your snooze sleep is bad sleep, right? You got woken up, you're trying to sleep. An iPhone, which most people are using, is a 9-minute sleep. You're not getting back into a deep level of restful sleep, so you're actually making your sleep worse by ending it. You're wasting time that isn't good sleep. So if you want to sleep longer, set your alarm later. That's fine, right? No one's saying you have to wake up at 5 a.m. If you're going to wake up at 5 a.m., snooze to 5:27, just set the alarm to 5:27 and get good an extra 30 minutes of sleep. So that's number one. And then number two is, because all of this goes back to self-talk and the stories that I want to tell myself. And I want to start by telling myself that I do what I say I do. And the first thing, if I set my alarm for 5 a.m. and it goes off and I say, nah, I'm going to go back to sleep, the message that I'm sending to my subconscious brain is that I don't care about the things that I set for myself. I set a goal to wake up at 5 a.m. and I said, screw it already. So I want to wake up with the first win is getting out of bed without the alarm. Win number two is what did I call a touchdown affirmation. So every day I'm laying in bed. As soon as I touch my feet down to the ground, I say my touchdown affirmation. That's the trigger. My feet touching the ground is the trigger, and the habit is saying my affirmation. So mine is, today is going to be a great day. Every day, as soon as my feet touch the ground, that's what I say. Now the reward is, then I smile. I feel good about it. So Q trigger habit reward. The Q is waking up or getting out of bed, right? So that's 2 wins already. Number 3, drink a glass of water. Number 4, make your bed. Right? So all of this stuff is stuff that you would normally do anyway, right? Some people would, so not everyone makes their bed, not everyone drinks a glass of water, but it's stuff that we probably can say what we want to do. Doesn't take any extra time, doesn't do anything, doesn't hinder me in any way, but it makes me feel good. Check, 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 check. 4 checks already, right? Then we get into that, have things like journaling. I call sitting in silence. I don't say meditation, because meditation scares people. Movement, other things throughout the day. You'll see on the checklist, I have a whole podcast that also goes along with the checklist, that like goes through each thing step by step and explains because there's a why behind every what. So I'll link to that as well. But yeah, so again, it's just about, the whole point is that when you go through those 10 things, and you literally, I encourage people to print out the paper and literally check them off, because it feels good. This is how the human brain works. It likes closed loops. It doesn't like open loops, right? It likes closed loops. It likes check marks. It likes to cross things off a list. It just enjoys these things. So I can use that to push myself forward towards these habits. And then again, start my morning with power and momentum. And then it's like, as I'm going through my day, when I face something challenging, it's like, I already did so much today. My brain now has in it that it's a winner. Like I am the person who does hard things. I do
Hmm.
this stuff. This is what I do. So now when I have that decision, and again, these are split second decisions that happen subconsciously, the decision between, someone, I'm in a meeting and someone speaks over me, and I know that I should say something, but I don't want to, and I'm a little self-conscious, and I have an instant like split second decision to make. My brain in that moment is not going to weigh the pros and cons. What it's going to do, it's going to go and what I call check the tape. It's going to go back and see in the past, what kind of person have I been? And if I have all day win, 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 I'm the type of person who gets what they want. I'm the person who does what they say they do. I'm the type of person who I'm going to be the person who says, no, you know what? Like, I think this, and I'm gonna do what I know I should do because I've trained my brain to do the things I want to do in situations like that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I love it. Yes. Um, what a great way to just, like you're saying, just train your brain and really start that day with momentum. And because a lot of us probably by 10 o'clock, like we haven't really accomplished anything and
Right.
we're already tired. Like we're ready for a mid morning nap, right? And so we're
Right.
getting coffee cup number three and just sludging through the day. And so, what a great way to really start with your morning like that. So, yes, the win the morning, win the day morning routine checklist is already in the chat for those of you with us live. Go check that out, and it will be in the show notes as well. So, go download your copy of that for sure. Um, and so this kind of ties in to some of it, but I like to ask all of my guests like if they have any um, daily non-negotiables is the word I was looking for, because I do work a lot with my clients on, what are those tiny baby little non-negotiable things that you want to put in place to build that momentum, to have those wins, to get those celebrations, because those are what get you the compound effect. That is how you get your bigger results.
Yeah, 100%. The compound effect. I love that one too. Yeah. So, I mean, my daily non-negotiables are exercise, or no, I shouldn't say exercise, movement. So I don't say exercise again. It's not like I have to work out every day. It's not like I have to go to the gym every day, but I do want to move my body in some way every day, whether that's a walk, whether that's deep breathing, whether that is a workout at the gym or rock climbing or biking. It doesn't matter, but I do want to move my body in some way every day, even if it's only 5 minutes or 10 minutes. That's one. Reading, writing, learning. Usually reading and learning go hand in hand. So they kind of knock each other out, but sometimes I'm reading a fiction book once in a while. I don't read much fiction, but every once in a while. And then, yeah. And then I also just want to make sure that I'm working on myself or my business in some way every day. So what that looks like, I leave these things pretty vague because in the life of an entrepreneur, as things come and things go and things change all the time. So I don't like say, oh, I have to do, 10 minutes of this, or, I have to, whatever. It's more, like I said, like reading and writing, because those are I want to, I need to write, I need to read. And other than that, as long as I move the needle forward in some way. And in a very simple way, I had a guest on my podcast in the very early episodes. Her name is Marcy Nevin, and she said what she called the pillow test. And I stole this from her because it's very simple. The end of the night, when I put my head on my pillow, did I do a good job? That's
Mm.
it. It's that simple. We know, right? As a coach, no, very rarely does someone come to me and just go, I just don't understand what I'm doing wrong. I just don't know what it is. Like, I feel like I'm doing everything right and my life is in shambles. Almost always it's, I know I shouldn't be eating like this, but I know I should be doing this, but I don't. I know I should be. And it's just like, you already know what to do. Like, if we're honest with ourselves, we know. Now, yes, are there some finer details that need to be ironed out sometimes? 100%. I'm not saying that everything is so obvious, but a lot of times, if we're just honest with ourselves when no one else is looking, yeah, no, I'm not, even when even I say this to my clients, I'm your coach, but you still have to, at the end of the day, you can lie to me, you can tell, like, you have to be honest with yourself and just be honest. Did you do what you need to do to wake up tomorrow a little bit better than you were today? And if you can say yes to that day after day after day, I can guarantee you in a year, you're going to be in a great place. And if you're constantly saying no to that, that's okay too. That's your choice. But then don't be surprised when you're in the same place a year from now.
Absolutely. If you want something different, you're going to have to do something different. And like you said, it doesn't have to be some huge thing, you know. Get up in the morning and drink water. Start there and then stack on that. Just small things and then celebrate those wins. Allow yourself grace the day that you forgot to put the cup of water by your bed before you went to bed. And so then you didn't drink your water that morning. Okay. No reason to beat yourself up over it, right?
Right. Allow yourself grace is a huge one. I love that. And it's exactly right. So like the morning routine checklist is a perfect example. It's 10 steps. One of the steps is take a cold shower, right?
Mhm.
People, that's the one that I get the most pushback on. People, "Ah, cold shower, oh my God." So like the reason I say take a cold shower is for the mindset piece, right? It's like start the day by doing something that you don't want to do, something that seems horrible, and then your day can only get better from there. So that's the logic behind it. It's not about a physiological whatever change. It's literally just like, this sucks. I don't want to do it. And I did it anyway. So like, come at me, world. But that being said, sometimes people are just against it, or they don't want to, they don't want to exercise in the morning because they exercise after at the end of the day, or they whatever. And they're like, I'm not going to do that part of the morning routine. And it's like, that's okay. There's no, it's not like, oh, because I didn't take a cold shower, now all the rest of this stuff goes out the window or something like that. It's like, again, having grace with yourself and realizing that these are just jumping off points. These are frameworks that have worked for others, have worked for me, and I know will work if you do it. But it's not to say that it's a panacea that just will cure everything, and it's not to say that there's not another way. Right? There's a million destinations to get. I mean, a million routes to get to the same destination. So just exactly as you said, have grace with yourself. Realize that you are going to mess up. That's never. It was never. There's never a world in all the multiverses where you don't screw this up, and that's okay, because I screw up every day, and just as long as you keep trying, that's really all that matters.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned like the cold shower, and maybe that's not for you. Well, it's your morning routine. You
Mhm.
know, take Paul's 10 checklist and take Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning and take, all the different ideas and design your own morning routine that works for you. And maybe start with one, two, three things and then build from there. You don't have to start day one with 10. Um, you don't have to end at 10 either. If you want to grow to 20, then go do 20. Like what works for you, because it matters. If it works for you, you're going to do it. If you
Right.
set out some big thing that you don't want to do, then you're not going to do it. And then what was the point anyway? You just wasted time and energy coming up with a list you're not going to do.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely
Yeah,
agree.
I love it. Looking over at the chat, thank you, those of you with us live. If you have any questions, comments, go ahead and throw them in there as we kind of just continue touching base on a few more things here. And so, Paul, you shared, the awareness, the acceptance, having a 5-year plan, having a value statement, the morning routine with building momentum, celebrating your small wins, allowing yourself grace. All these things are amazing. Is there anything else that you want to make sure the audience hears today?
Um, no, just, that exactly as the title of this show implies, a life that you love is created by you,
Mm,
right? It's kind of going back to what I said in the beginning, that this stuff doesn't happen by accident. And that can, I think, be a little scary for people, because they're like, what do you mean? Like, I have to do it. Like, I have to work. Like, why, like, and yes, that is true, but it's always worth it, right? I've never had someone reach a goal and say, oh, damn, I wish I didn't eat all those healthy foods. I wish I didn't get in charge of my time and start to make more time for myself. I wish I hadn't read all those damn books. It just doesn't happen. Many times people reach the age of 40 or 45 or 50 and go, oh wow, I wish I hadn't wasted the last decade. That happens a lot. I can
yeah.
guarantee you that. But very rarely do people make a positive change in their life and regret it. And it's that, if you can just fight through that initial resistance, it's always getting started, right? They say the first step is the hardest, and that it is the truth, but it's always worth it. And use the resources that you have available, right? I mean, I'm a huge proponent of coaching. You can see this shirt actually says coached. I was just at a coaching conference. I pay for
Yeah.
coaching. I have coaches. You have coaches. You're in a mastermind. You already said about it. Like, I don't like to be like pitchy about this stuff, but it's like people have this thing of like, they want to do it all alone. Like, well, why would I get help if I can do it on my own? But it's like, why would I hire a plumber when I could learn from YouTube? Why would I hire a mechanic when I could learn? You can learn everything on YouTube. The world, you said before, there's no shortage of information these days, right? But the thing is, this stuff is still hard, and it's still, one of my favorite sayings is you can't read the label from inside the jar, right? When you're too close, you see yourself, right? This, everyone has this experience of your best friend comes to you and goes, "Oh my God, this is happening, and this happened, and then that, and this and that," and they're like, "What do I do?" And you're like, "Oh, well, just do this." And they're like, "Oh, wow, like that, like that's, you just got that so easy." It's because you're not in it; they're in it, and they can't see it like you do. And in the same way, you're in your life, and a coach, a mastermind, someone outside of you, a therapist, whatever, will help you. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to invest in yourself. Don't be afraid to figure out a way to put a team around you to let you be the best version of you, because you being the best version of you is the best thing, not just for you, but for your family, for your friends, for the world, right? A rising tide raises all ships. And if we are all the best version of ourselves, that's how we make the best world possible. And that's why Chantal does what she does. That's why I do what I do. And that's why, this stuff is so important to talk about.
Do you have
That's
a
it.
mic? Do you just want to like drop it right now? Boom, done. We're out of here. Final podcast episode ever. Nothing more need to be said. No. That was awesome. Definitely gonna have to make you a little like quote social media thing to promote this episode about can't read the label from the inside of the jar. I love that.
My favorite.
Yeah, it's awesome. Um, yeah, well, I mean, just your energy is so infectious. And like I shared with you before we went live, I'm like, yep, I'm standing in the same place on Zoom all day long. But I was excited to get on, and now I'm even more pumped up. So great, great information you've shared here. Thank you so much. Um, and everything you just said about coaching, 100%. And not just coaching, but whatever it is you need on your journey. Is it
Mm-hmm.
coaching? Is it therapy? Is it a mastermind? Is it both? Like I'm attracted to and therefore am building the community, the coaching community group where you get one on one, you get group, you get the mastermind, you get the accountability, and all those eyes looking in. And then because you all are rising together. And so I tell my clients a lot, my audience is probably sick of me saying this. They're like, not again with the Jim Rohn.
Can't have too
But
much of their own.
you can't. You really can't. But so, he's got the saying of you're the sum of the five people you spend the most time with. And I say 100% absolutely. But then also think about surrounding yourself with three types of people. You want people at your same level, that community, so you guys can cheer each other on and say, this sucks, but they can be like, I know, but you got this, and we got this together, and you can push each other. And then you want someone ahead of you, that coach, or if you're not at the place in your journey where you've worked through the money blocks and stuff, and so you're not quite to where you want to invest the money in a coach, buy a book, listen to a podcast, do something, because those people are ahead of you on the journey too. So whatever makes sense. And then you also want to be reaching behind you and helping, because no matter where you are in your journey, you have learned something that someone else needs. So making that impact is what's really going to help just raise the consciousness of our entire world and set the rest of us up for the rest of our life, but then future generations. How are we going to leave the world when our limited time is done on it?
Yeah, for sure. 1,000%. 1,000% agree with everything you just said. I mean, I couldn't put it better myself.
Love it. Love it. All right. Um, Let me skim back over to the notes. Okay, so I want to make sure that everybody knows how they can connect with you. And so far in the chat, we've got your win the morning, win the day morning routine checklist, as well as the podcast episode that walks them through that checklist. And so where else should they go connect with you at?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram is just my name at Paul Levitin. Facebook, you can feel free to friend request me. LinkedIn too is a place that I exist. I'm trying to be more active there, but I can't say that it's my strong suit. I also have a Facebook community for my coaching clients that I'm happy to open to any of your listeners. It's called the Healthy Happy Human Academy. And I do live weekly trainings on different topics. So tomorrow is going to be on improving your sleep. I have ones on ending self-sabotage, getting out of imposter syndrome, all different topics that I like to talk about. Similar things are on my podcast. So if you just go and request access to that group, I'll happily let anyone in, as well as listen to the podcast. Again, the Healthy Happy Human podcast is where I'm most active and most passionate about growing. And if you like what I'm talking about here, you can get 100 hours of it on my podcast. So I have solo episodes and I have guest episodes where I bring on all types of experts, from therapists to addictions counselors to personal trainers and nutrition coaches to financial advisors, just because everything loops back together to helping live a healthy, happy life. So yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. Love it. So I've got everything linked in for everyone with us live, except for the LinkedIn. And I will get that for you guys right after we are done here. And everything will be in the show notes. Definitely go check out Paul's his podcast, his Facebook group, and his the morning routine checklist. Of course, yes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Awesome. Anything else that we want to hit on before we kind of start wrapping up here?
No, I don't think so. I think that I speak too fast and spit out too much information already. And I know that people are drinking through a fire hose whenever I talk. So I don't want to overwhelm anyone, but I just want to encourage people to, dig in, dive into more of my stuff if you are interested, and reach out. I love to talk clearly. That's why I do this. So I'm always happy to chat if you want to DM me or whatever.
I love it. Thank you so much. Just checking back real quick, making sure I'm not missing anything. And okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live. Thank you for watching the replay, listening to the podcast, watching YouTube, watching us on LinkedIn, wherever you are finding us. Thank you. Thank you, Paul, for sharing your wisdom and golden nuggets and your positive energy. Like, literally, if people go back to the beginning of the episode to now, like, you've like lit me up. Like, I'm ready to go. Let's go for a run. um, so thank you, everybody. Be sure to go check out his things. And if you got value out of this podcast, we just ask that you please share it with anyone else you think would benefit from it. And leaving a podcast review is always very appreciated. You can do that quickly and easily at ratethispodcast.com/Khalil. That's CALYL for Create a Life You Love. And next Tuesday, we're going to have Saban Collier back again. And she's going to help us prep for our business and personal financial success. Tax date is coming up, so she's going to get us some good tips on that. So you can find us in the Create a Life You Love community or catch us on your favorite podcasting platform. Same time, same place next Tuesday. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much, Paul.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I would love to hear from you about your biggest takeaways. Share them with me on Facebook or Instagram at Create a Life You Love Coaching. If you love this podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. That's it for now. Enjoy the journey.